Most people instinctively avoid substances that are obviously poisonous. You wouldn't willingly swallow a spoonful of mercury, for instance, because even a fraction of a gram can deliver a fatal dose. Just a small metallic droplet of about 200 milligrams is enough to end a human life. Or take something far more sinister, polonium. Inhaled as a vapor, a single gram has the terrifying potential to eliminate tens of millions of people. When we think of toxins, we imagine sinister chemicals, radioactive powders, or dangerous metals. But what surprises most people is that everyday items we casually consume can become just as lethal when taken in large enough amounts. Take coffee, for example. A hot cup in the morning feels harmless, even comforting. Yet if a person weighing 70 kilograms were to consume around 70 cups in a short span, the caffeine load would overwhelm the heart. Instead of keeping you alert, the chemical bombardment can throw your heartbeat into chaos. The rhythm falters, the heart muscles lose coordination, and in the worst moments, cardiac arrest sets in. What we consider fuel for productivity can, at exaggerated doses, silence the very organ that drives life. If coffee isn't your drink of choice and you lean toward alcohol, the story is no less alarming. People often joke about drinking contests, but the body doesn't find them amusing. Around 13 rapid shots in succession can be enough to overwhelm the nervous system. Alcohol functions as a depressant, muting the electrical impulses inside the brain. Once a high enough concentration builds up, it begins shutting down critical centers that regulate breathing and circulation. The very mechanisms that keep oxygen moving and blood pumping begin to falter. Eventually, the lungs forget their rhythm, the heart slows, and life can slip away. What is marketed as a social lubricant becomes, at too great a dose, a silencer of human existence. Water, ironically, is just as dangerous when balance is ignored. We tend to celebrate hydration, but flooding the body with massive amounts in a short time can be deadly. Roughly 6 liters consumed too quickly dilutes sodium levels in the blood to the point of crisis. The imbalance causes water to surge into brain cells, swelling them like balloons. This expansion crushes delicate structures inside the skull, producing headaches that escalate into seizures and, if pushed further, comas or even death. Something as pure and essential as water, when taken without restraint, becomes just as destructive as a chemical poison. Yet the reverse can be equally perilous. Deprive the body of water or flood it with excess salt, and cells shrivel instead of swell. Doctors call this hyponatremia, and the effects are brutal. 48 teaspoons of salt consumed in one sitting pushes sodium concentration to catastrophic levels. Cells throughout the body shrink, neurological signals short-circuit, and the victim spirals into convulsions. What begins with intense thirst and confusion can collapse into coma and end with death. Balance, once again, is everything. Even air, the most fundamental necessity, carries limits that are merciless. Deprive the body of oxygen for 4 minutes and permanent brain damage becomes likely. Stretch the absence to 6 minutes and the body as a whole can fail. Strangely, human determination occasionally pushes beyond those numbers. Elite free divers, trained to master their physiology, have managed to hold a single breath for over 20 minutes. Their achievement borders on the miraculous, though for most of us the lack of oxygen would prove devastating long before reaching such a record. But oxygen deprivation doesn't always come from holding your breath. Consider something as small as a cherry pit. Swallowing one whole rarely poses a problem, but crushing or grinding it unleashes cyanide. Just 1 or 2 chewed pits carry enough of the compound to pose a lethal risk. Cyanide works by disabling an enzyme called cytochrome C oxidase, a crucial cog in the machinery of cellular respiration. With that enzyme paralyzed, cells lose the ability to process oxygen no matter how much is available in the lungs. In effect, you suffocate from the inside out, while air remains all around you. The theme of oxygen deprivation appears again in the mountains. Climbers who scale peaks like Everest know of the notorious death zone. Once a human body rises above 8,000 meters, the thin air no longer supports adaptation. Even the most seasoned mountaineer cannot adjust to oxygen levels that low. Breathing becomes desperate, blood thickens, mental clarity fades, and the clock of survival ticks loudly with every passing minute. At that altitude, life itself is unsustainable without supplemental oxygen, and prolonged exposure inevitably leads toward collapse. Sometimes the threat lies in treats rather than extreme environments. Chocolate, beloved worldwide, contains a stimulant called theobromine. Humans can process this substance more effectively than pets like dogs. But that doesn't make us invincible. In theory, 1,000 milligrams for every kilogram of body weight would be lethal to a person. For someone of average size, that equates to eating 85 chocolate bars in one sitting. While unlikely, the fact remains that the compound we associate with comfort and sweetness carries a hidden razor's edge. Cannabis, another substance with a powerful cultural presence, follows the same paradox. Smoking it rarely reaches lethal levels because the dosage required to kill is astronomically high. But if consumed in sheer quantity, the risk emerges. Roughly 22 kilograms ingested would overwhelm the body to the point of fatality. The idea of eating such a mountain of marijuana in one go seems comical, yet it underscores a truth. Nearly every substance can turn into poison at the wrong dose. What all of these examples illustrate is not just the fragility of human physiology, but the importance of equilibrium. The body thrives on balance, a steady supply of nutrients, water, oxygen, and rest. Push too far in either direction, whether excess or deprivation, and the same things that sustain us become destructive. Coffee sharpens focus until it floods the heart. Alcohol loosens inhibition until it smothers the brain. Water revives until it swells the skull. Salt preserves until it burns the cells. Air is life until it disappears. Sweetness is joy until it overwhelms. Even substances considered harmless or recreational conceal their lethal side when pushed beyond natural thresholds. It is striking to realize how narrow the margins truly are. The span between life-giving and life-taking is sometimes only a few spoonfuls, a few cups, a few minutes. That precarious balance is why our bodies evolved such careful mechanisms for thirst, hunger, and fatigue. Those signals, subtle as they seem, are warning sirens honed by millions of years of survival. Ignore them, and we step into danger. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson hidden within these grim numbers. Danger is not confined to vials labeled poison or warnings etched in bright red. It resides in everyday comforts and pleasures waiting for imbalance. The same cup of coffee that warms your morning can, multiplied recklessly, silence your heart. The glass raised in celebration can, poured too many times, extinguish the brain's rhythm. The purest water can swell into a flood beneath the skull. Even a sweet cherry chewed carelessly can steal the body's ability to breathe. Life, in all its fragile brilliance, is built on moderation. Each example, whether it is the rare metals that poison in specks, the alcohol that suppresses, the caffeine that overstimulates, the water that drowns from the inside, or the salt that desiccates, shows that survival is not about avoiding everything, but about understanding balance. Too little and we perish. Too much and we perish still. Between those edges lies the narrow corridor where human beings endure. That corridor is where every heartbeat, every breath, and every spark of thought unfolds. It is where climbers chase summits without succumbing to thin air, where divers plunge into depths while counting seconds of oxygen, where ordinary people sip their morning drink without realizing how close it teeters to danger. It is where biology whispers constant reminders that life is delicate, demanding respect for proportion and awareness of boundaries. So the next time you reach for another coffee, another drink, another treat, remember that behind the pleasure is a threshold. Behind the satisfaction is a line you cannot see, but must not cross. Everything can be a medicine at one scale and a toxin at another. That duality defines the human condition, reminding us that survival depends not on the extremes, but on finding harmony with what we consume, how we breathe, and how we live.